Every relationship expert, every self-help article, and every well-meaning friend tells you the same thing when an avoidant pulls away. Go no contact, let them feel your absence, give them space to miss you and realize what they've lost. This advice works beautifully with anxious or secure attachment styles who process loss immediately and feel the pain of your absence acutely. But with avoidance, no contact carries a devastating risk that no one warns you about. It might give them exactly what they wanted all along and make them so comfortable in your absence that they never come back. The biggest danger of going no contact with an avoidant isn't that they'll forget about you or move on too quickly. It's that your absence will feel like relief rather than loss, like freedom rather than punishment, like the solution to their relationship anxiety rather than a wake-up call about what they're losing. While you're implementing no contact hoping they'll miss you enough to work on their issues and return, they're experiencing your silence as validation that relationships are too demanding and being alone is infinitely easier than the emotional labor that loving you required. The cruel irony is that no contact, which should create the space for them to realize their mistake, often creates the comfort that allows them to avoid that realization entirely. Your absence removes the very pressure and intimacy that triggered their avoidance in the first place, allowing their nervous system to return to its preferred state of emotional independence and self-sufficiency. They're not sitting in your absence pining for you, they're breathing sighs of relief that the relationship demands have finally stopped, and they can return to the emotional numbness that feels like safety to their traumatized attachment system. Understanding this risk doesn't mean you should chase them, accept breadcrumbs, or remain available for their hot and cold patterns. But it does mean you need to make informed decisions about no contact based on realistic expectations rather than hopes that their attachment style will magically transform through your absence. The painful truth is that avoidants often need to lose you completely, permanently, and devastatingly before they begin the work of examining their patterns. And even then, many never do the work at all. The biggest risk of no contact with an avoidant is that it might work exactly as intended, creating space and distance. But instead of that space motivating them toward growth and reconnection, it simply allows them to remain comfortably stuck in the same patterns that destroyed your relationship while feeling validated in their belief that they're better off alone. Your absence becomes their permission to stop trying rather than their motivation to try harder. The timeline reality, they don't process loss like you do. Understanding the avoidance delayed emotional processing timeline is crucial for managing expectations about no contact because their experience of loss operates on a completely different schedule than yours, often taking months or even years to fully register while you're experiencing acute pain immediately. This temporal disconnect means that by the time they might realize what they've lost, you've likely already healed and moved on, making reconnection feel impossible or undesirable for completely different reasons than motivated the original separation. Their emotional processing delay stems from the sophisticated defense mechanisms that protect them from feeling the full impact of relationship loss immediately. Unlike anxious or secure attachment styles that experience grief acutely and process it in real time, avoidants employ denial, rationalization, and emotional numbing that postpone their grief response indefinitely. While you're devastated in the first days and weeks, they're often feeling relief, validation, or simple emotional flatness that suggests the relationship meant less than it actually did. The timeline typically unfolds in predictable phases that can span months or years. The first phase, weeks 1 to 4, involves relief, validation of their choice to leave, and busy distraction with work, hobbies, or new romantic interests. The second phase, months 2 to 4, might include occasional moments of missing you mixed with continued rationalization about why the ending was necessary. The third phase, months 4 to 8, often brings growing awareness of emptiness and questions about their patterns. The fourth phase, months 8 plus, sometimes includes genuine grief and recognition of what they lost. But by this point, significant time has passed and circumstances have changed dramatically. Their delayed processing means they might reach out just when you've finally started healing, creating a cruel timing mismatch where their realization of loss coincides with your realization of freedom from their dysfunction. Your no contact that was meant to create space for them to miss you might work, but on a timeline that makes their eventual recognition irrelevant to your current emotional state and life circumstances. The avoidance grief process often requires them to experience the pattern repeating across multiple relationships before recognizing their role in relationship destruction. Losing you might not create immediate insight, but losing you plus the next person plus the next might eventually create enough evidence that they can no longer deny their patterns. This means your specific relationship might not be the catalyst for their growth. It might just be one data point in a larger pattern they don't recognize until years and multiple losses later. Their processing timeline is further complicated by the fact that they often don't connect their growing loneliness and dissatisfaction with the specific loss of you. They might feel generally empty or recognize something is missing from their life without identifying that something as the intimate connection they sabotaged with you. This diffuse sense of loss without specific attribution makes them less likely to reach out or recognize that returning to you specifically could address their growing awareness of isolation. The delayed timeline includes them needing to exhaust all their distraction and avoidance strategies before being forced to feel the actual grief of losing you. They have to fail at replacing you with work success, new relationships, social activities, and self-sufficiency narratives before hitting the wall where their avoidance tactics stop working and they're forced to confront what they've lost. This process can take years, and many avoidants never complete it, remaining in comfortable denial indefinitely. Their emotional processing often requires external catalysts that force confrontation with their patterns: a health crisis, aging parents' mortality, friends' successful relationship, or therapist's intervention, rather than occurring naturally through your absence alone. Your no contact creates necessary but not sufficient conditions for their growth. They also need circumstances that make their avoidance unsustainable or consequences that break through their sophisticated defense mechanisms. The timeline reality means that even if your no contact eventually works to make them realize their mistake, the timing might make reconciliation impossible, undesirable, or irrelevant to your current life. You might be happily partnered with someone else when they finally reach out. You might have processed your grief so completely that their return feels more annoying than validating. You might have grown so much that their unchanged state makes reconnection feel like regression rather than resolution. Their processing timeline also means that no contact loses effectiveness as time passes, because extended separation allows them to completely rewrite relationship history, minimize your significance, and construct narratives about the past that make returning psychologically impossible. The longer the silence, the more their memories get filtered through their avoidant lens until they remember only the relationship anxiety and forget the genuine connection, love, and potential that existed between you. The most important timeline reality is that avoidants often need to lose you completely and permanently, experiencing years of failed relationships, loneliness, and recognition that their patterns destroyed something irreplaceable before doing the deep work required to show up differently in future relationships. Your no contact might plant seeds that take years to germinate, benefiting their next partner rather than you, making your absence crucial for their eventual growth, but irrelevant to your specific relationship outcome. The comfort zone trap. When your absence feels like victory. The most damaging consequence of no contact with an avoidant is how your silence gets internalized as confirmation that their attachment patterns are correct, healthy, and worth maintaining, rather than dysfunctional trauma responses requiring intervention and healing. Your absence doesn't create the crisis that motivates change. It creates the validation that prevents change by proving to their wounded psyche that relationships are indeed overwhelming and that their strategy of emotional distance was the right approach all along. Their interpretation of your no contact follows predictable patterns shaped by their attachment trauma. Instead of viewing your silence as a boundary you're setting to protect your own well-being, they interpret it as evidence that you finally understood they were right about the relationship being too demanding, too intense, or incompatible with their emotional capacity. Your withdrawal confirms their narrative rather than challenging it, making them feel vindicated rather than motivated to examine their patterns. The victory feeling emerges from their belief that they've successfully avoided the emotional devastation they feared would come from continued relationship involvement. By leaving before things got too serious, or before you could abandon them first, they believe they've protected themselves from the worst-case scenario their trauma predicted. Your no-contact response feels like validation of this protective strategy rather than consequence of their destructive behavior. Watch how they construct a narrative where your silence proves they were right to maintain distance, right to avoid deeper commitment, and right to prioritize their emotional safety over relationship development. They tell themselves and others that the relationship ended because of fundamental incompatibility or because you wanted more than they could provide, conveniently erasing their role in creating the very problems that made continued connection impossible. Their comfort zone mindset treats your absence as the natural outcome of relationship dynamics that were always going to fail because of your different attachment needs, relationship expectations, or emotional capacities. This framing positions the ending as inevitable rather than preventable through their growth and change, absolving them of responsibility while confirming their belief that their avoidant approach to relationships protects them from worse pain. The validation they feel extends to their broader worldview about intimate relationships being fundamentally problematic for people like them. Your no contact becomes another data point in their collection of evidence that relationships are overwhelming, that people's emotional needs are burdensome, and that their strategy of keeping people at arm's length is the wisest approach to navigating human connection without getting destroyed. Their comfort zone expansion happens as they settle into the relief of your absence without the cognitive dissonance that should accompany losing someone they cared about. Instead of feeling torn between their fear of intimacy and their longing for connection, your silence eliminates the connection option entirely, allowing them to fully embrace their fear-based isolation without internal conflict about what they might be missing. The trap deepens when they start using your no contact as evidence in future relationships that confirms their attachment patterns are unchangeable aspects of their personality rather than trauma responses amenable to healing. They might tell new partners, "I'm just not good at relationships," or "I need a lot of space," as if these are immutable facts rather than symptoms of untreated psychological wounds that destroy their chances at meaningful connection. Their comfort zone includes the dangerous belief that they've dodged a bullet by ending the relationship before becoming more attached, more vulnerable, or more dependent on your presence in their life. This interpretation makes your absence feel like narrow escape from danger rather than loss of opportunity for growth, healing, and genuine intimate connection with someone who cared about them. The validation cycle becomes self-reinforcing as time passes without the emotional crisis they might have expected from ending a relationship with someone they cared about. The absence of devastating grief confirms their belief that they weren't as attached as they thought, that the relationship wasn't as important as it seemed, and that their ability to function fine without you proves they made the right decision in maintaining emotional distance throughout your connection. Their comfort zone trap includes them becoming more entrenched in avoidant patterns rather than motivated to change them, as your no contact eliminates the immediate consequence of their behavior while providing the space to rationalize their choices without challenge. They don't have to face your hurt, address your confusion, or confront the damage their patterns caused because your silence allows them to avoid all accountability while feeling increasingly confident that their approach to relationships, though lonely, is the safest option available. The most devastating aspect of the comfort zone trap is how it prevents the growth and self-examination that relationship loss should theoretically motivate. Instead of your absence creating the pain that drives them toward therapy, self-reflection, or genuine examination of their patterns, it creates the relief that allows them to remain stuck while feeling increasingly validated in their belief that they're simply not built for the kind of intimacy that healthy relationships require. The replacement factor, how they feel the void you left. The avoidance response to your no contact almost never involves sitting with the emptiness you left behind and processing their loss authentically. Instead, they immediately begin filling the void with replacements, distractions, and substitutes that prevent them from feeling the full weight of your absence, while creating the illusion that they're functioning perfectly well without you. This replacement factor is the mechanism that makes no contact backfire. Instead of your absence creating space for realization, it creates space for distraction that delays or prevents any meaningful self-examination. Their replacement strategy begins within days or weeks of your separation as they quickly identify activities, people, or pursuits that can occupy the time, attention, and emotional energy that your relationship previously consumed. They don't allow themselves to experience the quiet, empty evenings where they might miss you. They fill those hours with gym sessions, work projects, social plans, or new hobbies that keep them too busy to feel anything authentic about what they've lost. The romantic replacements arrive with shocking speed as they jump into dating apps, reconnect with exes, or pursue new interests who provide the validation and distraction that prevents them from sitting with grief about losing you. These new connections aren't about finding someone better. They're about finding someone different enough to prove they've moved on while maintaining surface-level engagement that doesn't trigger their attachment fears. They can enjoy the honeymoon phase with someone new while congratulating themselves on being over your relationship. Their work becomes an all-consuming replacement that provides both distraction from emotional processing and validation of their worth independent of intimate relationships. They throw themselves into career advancement, long hours, and professional achievements that create legitimate seeming reasons for their lack of emotional availability, while generating success that helps them feel productive and valuable despite their relationship failures. The promotion they pursue fills the void where relationship growth should occur. The friend group expansion serves as replacement for the intimate connection you provided, as they suddenly become more socially active with casual friends, who don't require deep emotional engagement. They accept every social invitation, organize group activities, and maintain busy social calendars that create the appearance of connection while maintaining the emotional distance that feels safe. These surface-level friendships provide companionship without the vulnerability that intimate relationships require. Their replacement strategy often includes physical or geographical changes that create the illusion of moving forward while actually avoiding the internal work that healing requires. They might move to a new apartment that doesn't hold memories of you, redecorate their space to eliminate your presence, change their routines to avoid places you frequented together, or even relocate to a new city where your relationship history doesn't exist. These external changes substitute for the internal transformation they're avoiding. The self-improvement replacements arrive as they throw themselves into fitness routines, meditation practices, educational pursuits, or personal development activities that look like growth but actually serve as sophisticated avoidance of emotional processing. They can spend hours at the gym, read dozens of self-help books, or attend personal development seminars while never addressing their attachment patterns or examining their role in relationship destruction. Their replacement tactics include filling your absence with multiple partial connections rather than one deep relationship, maintaining several casual dating situations, numerous surface-level friendships, and varied social activities that together create the illusion of a full life without requiring the vulnerability that genuine intimacy demands. This horizontal expansion of shallow connections replaces the vertical depth you offered without triggering their attachment fears. The digital distractions become replacement mechanisms as they scroll social media for hours, binge watch entire television series, or lose themselves in video games and online communities that provide engagement without emotional risk. These activities fill the quiet moments where they might otherwise reflect on their patterns, miss your presence, or confront the loneliness that their avoidance creates. Their replacement strategy often includes them pursuing new interests or reviving old hobbies that create identity independent of relationship status, while providing endless distraction from emotional processing. They might suddenly become passionate about rock climbing, painting, learning an instrument, or any pursuit that consumes time and mental energy while generating accomplishments that validate their worth outside of intimate connection. The most sophisticated replacement involves them developing narratives and beliefs that fill the void your absence created with philosophical or psychological frameworks that rationalize their choices. They might embrace concepts of radical independence, aromantic identity, or relationship anarchism that make their emotional unavailability seem like conscious choice rather than trauma response requiring healing. Their replacement patterns become so effective at preventing grief that they can go months or years without experiencing authentic sadness about losing you, convincing themselves and others that they have successfully moved on, when they've actually just successfully avoided feeling anything real about the loss. The void you left gets so thoroughly filled with substitutes that they never have to confront what your absence actually means. The tragic reality of their replacement factor is that it prevents the very realization that no contact is supposed to create. Instead of your absence motivating them to examine their patterns and recognize what they've lost, it motivates them to prove they're fine without you through an elaborate system of distractions and replacements that keep them comfortably numb while appearing fully functional and even thriving. The alternative approach: strategic contact versus complete silence. Understanding the risks of no contact with avoidance doesn't mean remaining endlessly available for their hot and cold patterns or accepting breadcrumbs while hoping they'll eventually commit. It means making strategic decisions about communication that protect your well-being while avoiding the trap of giving them exactly the comfortable distance that makes them never examine their patterns or recognize what they've lost. The strategic contact approach involves maintaining just enough presence to prevent them from completely rewriting relationship history or becoming too comfortable in your absence while establishing clear boundaries that protect you from their emotional unavailability. This might mean responding to their occasional messages with friendly but brief replies that don't invite deep conversation, or reaching out once every few weeks with casual check-ins that keep you on their radar without appearing desperate or pursuing. The key distinction is between contact that serves their avoidance by providing validation and attention without requiring them to show up authentically versus contact that serves your goals by maintaining connection while enforcing standards for how you'll accept being treated. Strategic contact means you're present but not pursuing, available but not accommodating their dysfunction, visible but not vulnerable to their mixed signals. When no contact is the right choice becomes clear when the avoidant has demonstrated complete unwillingness to acknowledge their patterns, take responsibility for their behavior, or make any genuine effort toward growth and change. If they've repeatedly ghosted, shown disrespect for your feelings, or made clear through actions that they have no intention of meeting your needs. Complete silence protects you from continued harm while allowing both parties to move forward separately. No contact backfires when implemented as punishment designed to make them suffer, manipulation intended to force their return, or strategy based on the assumption that your absence will automatically trigger their growth and realization. These motivations create expectations that set you up for disappointment when the avoidant responds to your silence with relief rather than panic, comfort rather than crisis, or permanent distance rather than desperate reconnection attempts. The alternative approach recognizes that you cannot control their response to your absence, cannot force them to examine their patterns, and cannot make them value what they're losing if their trauma prevents them from recognizing value in intimate connection. Your communication strategy should serve your healing and protection rather than attempting to manipulate their psychological process or timeline for realization. Strategic contact might include setting a specific timeline for yourself. Perhaps maintaining minimal friendly contact for 3 months while observing whether they demonstrate any genuine change, growth, or effort toward addressing their patterns. This gives you data about their capacity and willingness to work on themselves while protecting you from indefinite waiting, without information about their intentions or progress. The informed decision about no contact versus strategic contact depends on honest assessment of what you're hoping to accomplish, what the avoidant has demonstrated about their capacity for change, and what serves your long-term well-being rather than short-term hope that they'll transform through your absence. If maintaining any contact leaves you anxious, obsessive, or unable to move forward with your life, complete no contact becomes necessary regardless of how it might affect the avoidant. Your communication strategy should prioritize your healing, growth, and movement toward relationships that can actually meet your needs rather than focusing on creating conditions that might eventually make an avoidant realize what they lost. Their realization, if it comes, must be their own journey that doesn't depend on your perfect execution of contact versus no contact strategies. The most important recognition is that you cannot save someone from their own patterns through your communication approach, cannot love someone into healing through your availability or absence, and cannot control whether they eventually do the work required to show up differently in relationships. Your choice about contact is really a choice about what serves your dignity, peace, and movement toward the kind of love that doesn't require strategic communication planning to maybe possibly eventually be reciprocated by someone capable of consistent emotional availability?